90% of life insurance agents fail out of the industry for the one simple reason that they cannot handle objections. These objections feel personal. It becomes a doom spiral where you feel like there's no way for you to succeed, you're not the person made for this, and you start to think this industry isn't the one for you. In an industry that creates more millionaires than any other industry in the world, what makes them different than you? The key to surviving in the insurance industry is knowing how to handle every single objection. My name is Colton Holland. I'm a 30 to 40K a month producer consistently that leads a team of sales reps in the life insurance industry. I worked with Jeremy Miner, and now I work with some of the top agencies to help train and lead agents. If you watch till the end of this video, you're going to understand the exact frameworks I've used to make numerous reps into 5-figure a month income earners. So you can go out there, double or triple your close rate, and then use the skills you're learning here to build your team and create that generational life you're looking for. Let's dive into it. All right, so as you can see here, we have 3 main objection types. First off, you're gonna have connection objections. Those are objections that show up in the first 2 minutes of a sales conversation. Secondly, you're gonna have engagement objections or concerns. These kind of objections are gonna come up in the discovery when you're trying to build the emotional gap, and they do have substance to them, but they come up before price is dropped. Once the price is dropped, all objections turn into presentation objections. The reason these are the 3 main kinds of objections is because the psychological driver for the prospect to make them is completely different. So we need to handle them in different ways. And understanding this is what has led me to do $10,000 days and $22,000 weeks in life insurance. And trust me, you can do this too. I am not special. You just have to learn. So let's start off with, who even am I? Well, I'm the agency leader at Lionecrest Financial. Like I said, I do about 35 to 45K virtually. And all of this is on aged $1 leads. Final expense, it's nothing crazy. No, your leads don't suck. It's just you don't know how to make the most of them because you don't know this. So a bit about our agency is we're new. We just partnered with Wiley Hawkins at FFL All-Star, an agency that's doing around $5 to $6 million a month in business. And the average rep right now is doing $16,000 a month in issue paid business. So they're taking home on average around $11,500 in commissions a month, which is very fucking good for the insurance industry. So our agency is made up of 3 people. So first off, me, I'm the agency manager, close at 71%, work with Jeremy Miner, trained numerous reps to seeing success in multiple industries. And we got my man Carter. This dude is the recruiting and marketing mastermind. He attracts A players from all over. He knows the ins and outs of every single sales agency. And Dylan Reeve is known as the Alex Hormozy of life insurance. When I first met him, that was how he was introduced to me. He is the mastermind behind all the systems, business plan, and so much more. And a little fun fact about my partners, Carter and Dylan, they run Headhunt Talent, which is a headhunting recruiting agency that has scaled every single big name in the life insurance industry that is an agency owner. I'm telling you, you name anyone, they know him. Jonah Lewis, Jay Maska, Wiley Hawkins. That's who we partnered with because we found their systems and their culture and everything to be the best. Josh Crisp, Owen Sweeney, just keeps going. Last year alone, they were responsible for creating $36 million of commissions to all the reps, and it just keeps going up. And now that that's out of the way, let's dive into the connection objections. Now, this is the hardest part of life insurance sales because you get all of these at the start. So connection objections, these are the ones that happen within the first 2 minutes of the sales call when you're trying to establish your frame and initiate the sales conversation. Now, what is a frame? In order to understand this, we need to know the frame. Well, a frame in psychological terms is how someone perceives the world or the situation or conversation that they're currently in. In a conversation or interaction between 2 people or 2 different parties, each side is going to have a frame. Now, if you've read the book, Never Split the Difference, you know how this works. By the end of the conversation or the interaction, one frame will stand, and it's going to be the person or the party that has the strongest and most sure frame. So we need to make sure in the beginning of the sales call and the sales process that we are establishing an authoritative in our frame by handling these objections. So where do these come from? These objections are going to come from sales resistance that can be triggered by overused verbiage, poor tonality, unnatural verbal pacing, and a lack of listening on the agent's side. What does overused verbiage mean? It means saying the same shit that everyone else does. It creates expectations that you're going to be a salesperson. You're going to try to sell them life insurance. Those expectations are going to align with previous negative experiences, meaning they're going to try to get out of it. An example of this would be, hey, is this blank? Is this prospect's name? Yeah, it's just Colton Holland with XYZ company. How are you doing today? That's overused verbiage. That triggers poor expectations that you're going to be a salesperson triggered by their previous experiences. Poor tonality would be if you just sound monotone, you sound like you're reading a script. You don't sound like a natural person having a conversation. And you also don't sound inviting or confident. This is one of the biggest problems that creates and triggers connection objection. And then in a natural verbal pacing is just going to be moving through it at the same pace on and on again. Think of someone like Tony Robbins or one of those phenomenal stage speakers. What you'll notice is how they keep the audience captivated is they meticulously transition between different verbal pacing to hold your attention. Because if I just talk in the same rate the entire time and you just keep listening and I just keep yapping on and like this, you get bored. I start going from one ear out the other because in your subconscious mind, you think you know what's coming next. And when you think you know what's coming next, you don't feel like you need to listen anymore and you zone out. And then a lack of listening, if you're just not fucking listening to the prospect, they're going to get frustrated. These are the biggest reasons that are going to cause connection objections. This leads to the prospect wanting to shake you off the phone since they view you as a salesperson, not a trusted authority yet. But what's important to remember is these have no substance. They are just trying to assert their frame above yours. So for actually tactically handling these, we're going to follow frameworks. Why frameworks? Because people are dynamic, scripts are static, frameworks are dynamic. So between scripts and frameworks, which ones are consistently going to match the conversation? It's going to be the frameworks. So first thing we're going to have to do is diffuse. We're going to have to disarm the prospects, lower the prospect's guard so they are open to what we're going to say next and they start to ease up. Secondly, we need to acknowledge what the prospect says with their exact verbiage. Shows that we're listening, it shows that we're present in the conversation, and we're not just reading a script or following a process. And then third, we need to ask. We need to put the focus back on the prospect so it becomes a two-way conversation, take control and establish our frame above theirs as an authority, and advance the sales conversation down the straight line by finding a problem you can help solve, which gives you permission to set the status and the agenda for the conversation moving forward. So examples of this. So let's say a prospect says, I'm busy right now. Yeah, that's not a problem. That's actually perfect. It makes our job so much easier because we're really backed up here too. So I'll just make it real quick for you. That was both a diffusing and an acknowledgement. Those are steps 1 and 2 of the framework. The diffusing portion was, oh yeah, that's not a problem. That's actually perfect and makes it a lot easier for us, because we're backed up over here as well. That's where we acknowledge it. We acknowledge that we heard what they said. Now we're going to go into re-asking to put the focus back on the prospect and take control. And depending on the script and where you're at in the sales process is going to depend what question you go to. But here's just some examples. Yeah, that's not a problem. It's actually perfect. It makes it a lot easier for us. We're really busy over here as well. So I'll make it quick. Did you end up getting something set up, or are you still possibly looking for ways to protect the family? Say another example, if you just need to confirm a data point, establish you're talking with the right person, and kind of take control as an easier way, which I would recommend for all starting reps. Yeah, so I'll just make this real quick for you. I have your date of birth here as XYZ. Is that about right? Okay, cool. And then you just proceed. Let's say someone says, I'm not interested. Oh, I apologize. That's not a problem at all. Just so I can update the system so you don't get any more calls. When you first sent this in, what was your main concern? Was it just to cover the burial and final expenses, or also possibly leave some more behind to the family? We diffuse, we use a diffusing statement. Oh, I apologize. Then we roll into the acknowledgement, just so I can update the system so you don't get any more of these calls, because clearly that's what they're insinuating by them saying, I'm not interested. They don't want to talk. What was your main concern? Was it just wanting to cover the burial and final expenses, or also potentially leave something behind to the family? And you just roll back into the sales conversation. I already have coverage. Let's say they say, I already have coverage. Perfect. That actually makes our job a whole lot easier when the people we talk to already have coverage. What kind of coverage did you get set up? We diffuse. Perfect. That actually makes our job a whole bunch easier when people already have the coverage. When you ask what kind of coverage do they have set up, they're going to tell you about what they had set up for. Is it term? Is it whole life? Is it IUL? And then from there, once you get what kind of coverage they have set up, you can transition into finding the base level of interest and problem you can solve. So let's say they have like term, or they have a policy amount that is clearly term. Yeah, awesome. Most of the families we do help already do have that temporary term coverage, but you know that does expire at some point. So when you submitted this, were you just hoping to take care of the final expenses to not burden the family, or also leave something a little bit behind if possible? Then we get right back in. See, we need to set it up, because we can't just go straight into it and say they need additional, because then they don't think we understand. I don't remember filling this out. Oh yeah, that's not a problem. I can hardly remember what I ate for breakfast this morning. I have your date of birth here as XYZ, is that right? Again, we diffuse, chuckle, laugh. It's going to trigger dopamine in their brain if they also get triggered to like laugh or smile in there, which is going to ease their guard. And then from there, we acknowledge them, say like, yeah, I have a hard memory as well. Then we clarify something. So just to make sure we have the right person on the phone, because if you don't remember this, there's a chance you didn't submit it. I have your date of birth as this. Is that right? And again, this framework can be used for any connection objection that comes up, but these are the main 4 you should be getting. Next up, engagement objections. What are these? Well, these are any kind of objection or question coming up before the presentation that could get in the way of the sale being made, depending on how you answer. So where do these come from? These are questions asked or concerns shared by the prospects that have substance behind them. We can't just ignore them, gloss past them, because not only do they feel like they're not being understood and heard, then leads them to not feel like we're an authority there for them. But it also could pop up after the sale when fear and cost is involved, which is the last thing we want. It's going to look very similar for the framework. We're going to diffuse, use a disarming statement to set up a clarifying question. We're going to clarify, we're going to find out what actually is behind their question or concern. Because if we just take a wild guess based off surface level information, there's a 50-50 that we say the right thing. And the last thing you want to do is answer when you don't know the right answer, certainly. And then after that, we're going to discuss it. We're going to diffuse and disarm and remove this concern from the conversation in a way that frames our answer or our response in a way where that when we frame our response or our answer, it supports them with buying the coverage. It aligns them to buy the coverage at the end of the call. So what this is going to look like is they're going to ask, is this going to be one of those 2-year waiting periods? So first off, I need to diffuse. I mean, it really depends all what you're looking for. We work with 26 carriers in the state. So it really depends on your medical and what you feel like you need to best take care of the burial for the family. I guess just so I best understand and know how to help, what makes you ask? That's the clarifying question. What makes them ask? They're from there going to say, my sister, when she passed, she had the 2-year waiting period and her family didn't get the funds they needed. Oh my gosh, I apologize. Oh my gosh, I apologize. Well, good news for you, based on your health and everything we've gone through. As long as you're being honest with me, I hope you're being honest over there, are you? They'll laugh. They'll say, yeah, I'm being honest. Okay, based on your current health, you most likely will qualify for a product that doesn't have a 2-year waiting period. Now, again, I'm not the final decision maker, but it's good that you're looking into it right now because you can qualify for something that's first day coverage and you don't have to go to that as a last option like your sister might have had to. So then in there, we discuss it and we answer it in the way where we know it helps them. If they tell us they don't want a 2-year waiting period, but that's pretty much all they can qualify for, then we're going to have to frame it in a way where it's good, where they're at least doing something. And to do this, we're going to want to use a frame that's like, like the all or nothing frame versus a little bit of something is better than nothing. And that typically gets people to buy in like, hey, you might not get the perfect coverage, but at the end of the day, is it better to have a little bit of something and treat it like a savings account for the first 2 years and gain a bit of interest? Or is it better to just give up on protecting the family? And they'll be like, no, it's probably better to actually try. So another example would be, why would I do this instead of just putting money in a savings? So in this, they have a concern around the value of the product. So we would first diffuse by saying, yeah, you possibly could just put money aside in the savings. What makes you ask? Has that been something you've been trying to do or been contemplating? And they say, well, I don't know. I just feel like I can save the money up instead of just buying a policy. Well, you possibly could, but can I ask, how long would it actually take you to save up that $15,000 to $20,000 for a burial with your current budgetary constraints? And they say, well, I mean, if I put aside $100 a month, it'd probably take me a good long time. What ends up happening? Right. And, I hate to ask, what would happen if something happened before that when you're still trying to save up the money for that? And they say, oh, I don't know. They'd have to come up with the rest. And based on what we've talked about, I'm guessing that's the last thing you want them to have to do. And that's why people look into this. It's not to plan for the best case scenario where you live another 15, 20 years and can save it up. It's put in place for what happens if, God forbid, the worst comes up and something happens sooner than the time that would allow you to save up for that yourself. Does that make sense? From there, they are going to tie it down in their own head as that is not an option. Because what happens if they die previously? We reframe them into thinking of a consequence of, okay, what happens if I go that route and then I die sooner? Well, now I don't have anything. How much will it cost? This is a very typical one in life insurance. Oh yeah, we'll be getting into all of that. It really depends. We work with 26 different A-rated carriers. So it kind of depends on, your current financial situation versus, what you need to cover so the family's safe no matter what. And then also, like your health, who's your favorite football team, all that sort of stuff. And then we'll get into all that at the end and you'll have that all that info. And then we'll just roll into the next question. So like kind of walk me through in your situation, what do you have right now to protect against the family? Will I have to do a medical exam? Well, it really depends on, what kind of product or how much coverage you feel like you need. I guess like what makes you ask? Oh, I just don't want to go through all that poking and prodding. Is there like a very like a simpler way we do this? Well, again, it depends on how much coverage you need, but based on the conversation we're having right now, I don't see any reason you would need to go the full medical route and they have to come out, poke you, prod you. There's a lot more simpler ways to take care of it now. Does that make sense? And they say, yes, great, move on. Connection objections and concerns, very simple. Presentation objections, what are these? Well, these are objections that are going to come up after the price is dropped. They can either be smoke screens, a logistical objection, or a frame-based objection. Where do these come from? These objections are going to come from the prospect's inability to commit and move forward with our specific avatar. This is due to two reasons. So first off is going to be fear that the prospect now has knowing the price of their solution, and then sales resistance due to the drop in status or frame. The typical life insurance avatar needs life insurance because they don't have an abundance of money, meaning they are a lot more likely to be thinking in a scarcity or cost-based mindset. Everything we've talked about typically when we do get objections has gone out the window. So our job is to get them back into the results-based thinking. The last thing we want to do is create a combative conversation, speed it up, because it only makes the prospect more defensive and triggers their fight or flight response more. And also, if it's not a logistical objection, it means it can be overcome. And there's only two types of logistical objections in a life insurance sale. It's money, meaning they literally couldn't draft the policy if they signed up. They only have like $5 in their bank account. Or it's value, which means it is entirely not what they want. For example, we all know that person. They are 85 years old and they want to cover their entire mortgage. That shit is just not happening. You have to get them off the phone as soon as possible because you are not covering jack shit. So the framework for handling presentation objections is going to be a bit longer because there's extra steps. So first off, we're going to have to diffuse and slow down the prospect. Then from there, we're going to have to clarify and direct it towards money, because hint, with this prospect, like we've talked about, it always comes down to cost-based thinking over results-based thinking. So it's always going to be about money. Get them to have a money conversation. From there, isolate the objection versus the value. Like I want to make sure like this is actually what you were looking for. So like if you did have the money, would this cover everything you would want it to? They say yes. Okay, why? They start to explain. They're getting back into results-based thinking. They'll always come back, like I said, results-based thinking versus cost-based thinking. We need to reframe them back to results-based thinking. Loop back to the sale, re-ask to the sale, and get commitment to buying the policy, or in instances, just push to close. Let's say they say, I need to think about it. So let's say they say, like, I need to think about it, or I need to talk to the spouse, which is the same thing. It's this exact same thing as a smoke screen. Let's think about it this way. If it was free, would they need to think about it? Would they need to talk to the spouse? They would just fucking get it. So let's say they say, I need to think about it. Oh yeah, that's not a problem. You definitely could. Just so I can send like the best info over to you. So when you go back and think about it, you can make the easiest decision. What I guess was it that you wanted to go over in your mind? And they say, oh, I just got to know like which one I want to go with. I need to check the budget. Okay, cool. We're back to money. From there, it's I need to go and check the budget objection. It's money. Okay, cool. So like just so I understand, because the most important thing is that this would actually help you in the family. I guess like money aside, do you feel like this covers everything that you and the family would need to not worry about the burial? Yes. Okay, like how come? Just so I understand. They start to explain. So is it more of a, I need to think about whether or not I want this at all? Or is it a, I need to think about which option best works with the budget and which of the three I'm going to go with? And they're typically going to say, it's like, which of the three am I going to go with? Okay. And then I'm going to clarify, I'm going to tie down. Okay, so you know you're going to go with something. It's just about like which one works best for the situation. Yes, exactly. Okay, can I make a suggestion? Most people in your situation, when they kind of have to go over the budget, they just start at the bronze, get a little something, age, health, and everything locked in the door so you know you at least have some coverage, knowing you're going to go through with it anyways, right? So what I'm going to do is pull up the application here and we'll get started on that. I just want to make sure I have your name spelled right. It's Colton Holland, COLTON, HOLLAND. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, great. Now we're into the application. So that's, I need to think about it. I need to go and check the budget. Email me this quote and I'm going to go shop around. This is a big one that a lot of people get stuck on. So you're going to ask, yeah, that's not a problem. You definitely could go out and do that. Just so I have an understanding, when you go out and shop around, is it just going to be like the cheapest cost you're looking for, or are you looking for something in specific? They're going to say the cheapest cost because these people fucking love cheap things. And I completely understand. I guess, can I share a potential perspective on that? Well, if you were going to go skydiving, would you want the cheapest parachute you could find or the best parachute you could find? Even if it was more expensive. Well, they say the best. Okay, how come? Well, I don't want to play with my life like that. Like, that's a live or die situation. I could die if I go with a cheap one and it doesn't work. Right. Well, can you kind of see how this applies here? Because I mean, you'll be gone, but whose life is this really going to be impacting the most? They're going to say it's their family, it's their beneficiary. With protecting and potentially saving their financial life, do you just want to go with like the cheapest route or the one that's actually going to provide the best results? If they're able to charge cheaper, have you ever thought of what they might sacrifice to make it a cheaper product? And they say, no, I haven't. Right. Most people don't. It's the ability and speed to pay out the claims. And the last thing you want is to try to look and find a unicorn, the cheapest price. But the thing is, a lot of unicorns are just horses with really good fake horns. And who's going to be the people that find out the horse doesn't fly? And they're going to say, my family. Do you really want to be the kind of guy that cheaps out when it comes to protecting his family? When this covers everything you know it would, and you know you're not going to be risking anything? They're going to say no. So I'm going to get the e-app pulled up over here and all of this kind of stuff, and we just roll into that shit. I'm not ready to sign up for anything today. Yeah, that's not a problem. You don't have to do anything today. Just so I know to best help and send you some information, what is it that makes you want to like put it off? I just need to check over the budget. Bam, we're right back to I just need to go and check over the budget. It's all the same shit. It all comes down to money. They have a scarcity mindset. So I hope you found this helpful. And if it closes you deals, let me know. For all the free sales training that I offer, yes, I do train people completely for free through my school community. You can go to the link in the description. And if you also want to apply for my killer sales team and to join our agency at Lioncrest Financial, we will also have that application linked in the description as well. I hope you found this helpful. Drop a like, hit subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.